Hey, it's Chardon Moore with OutImpact.com, and this is another episode of Wake Up, Progressive Punditry and Action Alerts for the Apathetic Advocate. In this episode, I'd like to talk a little bit about the United States Supreme Court, and more specifically, Supreme Court nominee Sonia Sotomayor. Now, a lot has been made about her record. A lot of people have been saying, oh my goodness, she's been overturned 80% of the time. Anybody with a record like that, do they really deserve a promotion to a lifetime job in the United States Supreme Court? Well, I want to talk a little bit about those numbers, where they come from, and what they mean. And then I want to talk about how the United States Supreme Court works, so we can all put those numbers into perspective. Well, first of all, Rush Limbaugh has been saying that Sotomayor has been overturned 80% of the time. As far as where he gets his numbers from, you got me. I don't know if his bottle of OxyContin does his fact-checking, but regardless, if you look at the numbers of times that she's been heard by the Supreme Court and the numbers of times she's been overruled, there is absolutely no way that anybody with basic math knowledge could come up with the number 80%. It's actually 60%. Now, I know you're saying 60% is horrible, but not really. To put it in perspective a little bit, the decisions that Justice Sotomayor has been party to as one member of a three-panel judge on a three-panel Court of Appeals, she's been heard 5 times. 5 of those decisions have been heard, and 3 of them have been overruled. Now that sounds horrible, and that means that she's been overturned 60% of the time. But if you look at her entire career, Justice Sotomayor has made somewhere around 380 decisions. Now, if you take into consideration that of those 380 decisions, only 1.3% of the time has she been overruled, it really kind of changes your perspective. I don't know about you, but I'd love to say that I was only wrong 1.3% of the time. But irregardless, let's just look at that number 60%. Let's throw out all the other decisions she's made and her 1.3%, overturned rate. And let's just look at that 60%, the times that she's been heard by the Supreme Court. Now, the way that the Supreme Court works is that they hear cases and decide to overturn them or uphold them and all that kind of good stuff. I'm sure you know that. But a lot of people don't really understand why they hear cases. A lot of people, you get mad and you say, I'm going to sue you and I'm going to appeal it all the way up to the Supreme Court. Good luck. The fact is that the Supreme Court does not hear a lot of cases at all. And when they do hear a lot of cases, a case, it's usually only under very specific circumstances. For example, they will hear a case if no legal precedent exists. If you're wanting to appeal a case that the only precedent that exists up to that point is from a lower court, then there's a good chance they might hear that case. They'll also hear cases where they realize that the culture of the United States and of our society has changed so that a case needs to be overturned. For example, the Dred Scott decision. That was a decision made by the United States Supreme Court that basically said that black people have no rights. And obviously, thankfully, that has been overruled. Another time where they will hear a case is if there are several different types of legal precedent that really are contradictory. If there's an issue where some courts are finding in one vein of legal precedent and some courts are finding in another vein and they're contradicting one another, then it's clear that the United States Supreme Court needs to hear that case. So keeping that in mind, the United States Supreme Court usually only hears a case if they're planning on overturning it. So if they have a case that comes to them, then the United States Supreme Court overturns that case 75% of the time. If you're a justice or judge and you have one of your cases that you've decided on going to the United States Supreme Court, the odds are already not in your favor. If you take that into account, the 75% overturn rate and the fact that Sotomayor has only been overturned 60% of the time, that actually puts her at better than average. And you can also look at Justice Alito, because Alito has actually been overturned 100% of the time, which means of the 2 cases that have gone to the Supreme Court that he has decided on, he's been overruled twice. Once you take all of that into consideration and you really know and understand how the Supreme Court works, you have to come to a different conclusion. It gives you a better place to look at that number 60%. And you realize that as far as justices go, Supreme Court nominee Sotomayor is actually better than average. So, I'm glad to share all of this information with you, and I want to keep doing it. So please let me know how I'm doing. Tell me if I get any of my facts wrong. I'd love to get into a good debate with you. And let me know what you'd like to hear in the future, because I do this for you. I want to hear from you, and otherwise I'd just be talking to my webcam for no reason. So keep me informed. Visit outimpact.com. Check out my blog at liberalmartyr.com, and please subscribe to my videos. I'll talk to you soon.